Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbat, everybody. Welcome to Shabbat Nachamu's Kabbalat Shabbat on Zoom. May it be a good week of comfort for us all, and may we only get good news. So, oh, first of all, we've got a Devar Torah from Morris, and then we've got Rabbi Shlomo Gertie going to lead us in Kabbalat Shabbat. So, over to you, Morris.
Thank you very much. Today is the 61st anniversary of the Great Train Robbery. I just mentioned this in passing. However, tomorrow we celebrate the very ancient, romantic, but minor festival of Tu B'Av. This was the day when the unmarried women would dance in the vineyards and the unmarried men would go to the fields to pick a wife. I'd have thought they would have been better off going to the vineyards, personally. Perhaps this is an early version of speed dating. However, this festival is greatly underrated and has a lot of its significance consequently ignored. In temple times, according to the Mishnah, Tu B'Av was a joyous holiday, marking the beginning of the grape harvest, with Yom Kippur marking its end. The Babylonian Talmud states that on both these dates, the unmarried girls of Jerusalem dressed in white garments went out to dance in the vineyards. He goes on to state that there were no holy days as happy for the Jews as Tu B'Av and Yom Kippur. Various reasons for celebrating Tu B'Av are cited in the Talmud and by Talmudic commentators. Tu B'Av marks the informal high to counter the low of the 3 weeks leading up to Tisha B'Av. The 15th of Av is undoubtedly a most mysterious day. The search of the Shulchan Aruch reveals no observances or customs for this date, except for the instruction that Tachnan and similar portions should be omitted from the daily prayers, as is the case with all festival dates, and that one should increase one's study of Torah, since the nights are beginning to grow longer and the nights were created for study. The Talmud considers the greatest festival of the year, with Yom Kippur a close second. The Mishnah tells us that no days were as festive for Israel as the 15th of Av and Yom Kippur. In what way is Tu B'Av the equivalent of Yom Kippur? Our sages explain. Yom Kippur symbolizes Hashem's forgiving Israel for the sin of the golden calf in the desert. For it was on that day that he finally accepted Moses' plea for forgiveness of the nation. Now, on that same day, Moses came down the mountain with a new set of tablets. Just as Yom Kippur symbolizes the atonement for the sin of the golden calf, Tu B'Av signifies the atonement for the sin of the spies, when 10 of them returned bearing such negative reports, the entire nation was reduced to panic. As a result of that sin, it was decreed by Hashem that the nation would remain in the desert for 40 years, and no person 20 or older would be allowed to enter Israel. On each Tisha B'Av of those 40 years, those who had reached the age of 60 died. On the 40th year of their wandering, on the approach to the 9th of Av, the last group of people got ready to die. When the 9th of Av approached, nothing happened. They then decided they may have had the wrong date, so they waited another day, and another, and another. Finally, on the 15th of Av, when the full moon appeared, they realized definitely that the 9th of Av had come and gone, and that they were still alive. Then it was clear to them that Hashem's decree was over, that he had finally forgiven the people for the sins of the spies. This is what is meant by sages when they say, no days were as festive as for Israel as the 15th of Av and Yom Kippur. For there is no greater joy in having one's sins forgiven. On Yom Kippur, for the sin of the golden calf, and on Tu B'Av, for the sin of the spies. In the book of Judges, Tu B'Av is referred to as a holiday. Following the case of the 5 daughters of Zelophehad, daughters who inherited from their father when there were no sons were forbidden to marry someone from a different tribe, so that the land would not pass from one tribe to another. Generations later, after the story of the concubine of Gibeah, the children of Israel swore not to allow their daughters to marry anyone from the tribe of Benjamin. This posed a threat of annihilation to the tribe of Benjamin. Each of these prohibitions was lifted on Tu B'Av. The people realized that if they kept their prohibition, one of the 12 tribes might finally disappear. As to the oath that had been sworn, they pointed out that it only affected the generation that had taken the oath, and not subsequent generations. The same was applied to the prohibition of heiresses marrying outside their own tribe. This rule was applied only to the generation that had conquered and divided up the land under Joshua, but not future generations. This was the first expression of the merging of the tribes and was a cause for rejoicing. In the book of Judges, it's referred to as a festival to the Lord. Over the generations, this day is described in Tractate Tehinat as a day devoted to betrothals, so that all new Jewish families would emerge. The holidays also celebrated the wood offering brought to the temple, and it is referred to as a day of the breaking of the axe. Josephus refers to it as the Feast of Zelophehad, wood bearing. At the beginning of the Second Temple period, the land of Israel lay almost totally waste. The wood needed to burn the sacrifices and for the eternal flame that had to burn on the altar were almost impossible to obtain. Each year, a number of brave people volunteered to bring wood needed from afar, a trip that was dangerous and extreme. Not just any wood could be brought. Wood that was wormy was not permitted, and dampness and cold are ideal conditions for the breeding of worms in wood. As a result, all the wood that could be needed until the following summer had to be collected before the cold set in. The last day that the wood was brought in for storage over the winter months was Tu B'Av, and it was a festival occasion each year when the quota needed was filled by that day. Beginning with Tu B'Av, we start preparing ourselves spiritually for the month of Elul. The days begin to get shorter, and nights get longer. The weather too helps us take a spiritual stock. The hectic days of the harvest are over for the farmer, and the pace has slowed down considerably. Even on a physical level, the heat of the summer makes it hard to sit down and think things out. And now that the days and nights are cooler, it is easier to examine one's actions. In earlier times, it was a custom from Tu B'Av to use as one's greeting, "May your inscription and seal be for good. Kativa v'tahema tova," the same blessing that we use on Rosh Hashanah. Those who work out the gematria values of different expressions found that the phrase adds up to 928. And so does the words for Tu B'Av. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
So, thank you very much, Mark. Very interesting. Okay, Shlomo,